So now we're going to look at the product life cycle, the PLC. Okay, so the product life cycle, it's a bit the same as a biological life cycle. You know, you get born, you move up, you get mature, you get to that growth stage, and then after a while you move into a bit of a steady decline, unfortunately. Okay, but when we start to think about our product or service, it pretty much goes through the same cycle or sequence. And there's a need for us to understand where we're at in that cycle so that we can make sure that we're marketing ourselves accordingly. Now, the importance of that is for any for-profit business, we're always trying to find new ways to grow our future cash flow by maximising our revenue from the sale of products and services. And that means that we need to start thinking about, gaining positive cash flow to allow us to invest in development of new products and services or expand production capabilities, basically grow ourselves and make ourselves a little bit larger and move on from there. So given that it's our goal to acquire key market share and start to grow and develop that business, we need to know what's going on. Okay, so that sustainable and consistent cash flow that's going to get built is the long-term secret to our success. Well, we hope so, as long as we analyse ourselves correctly. So really what we're looking at then is really trying to understand the product life cycle as a tool. Now the product life cycle we start to think about really, it's a bit like that. Okay, so what we start to think about is we start to think about our sales, okay, and that's time. And what should happen is when we first go out, we start to launch our product and it'll do this and it'll be out there for a while and at some point it'll start to do that and start to go back into a bit of a decline. It'll be slow at the start, but it should pick up steam and pick up momentum. We can divide that into a couple of obvious key areas. And if I take those all the way down, we start to look at different stages. Okay, so we start to look at, this is the introduction. Okay, our product's just been born, just been released out there, we're starting to get into it. We move through a growth, we get into our maturity, and then we slowly start to decline, some faster or slower than others. Okay, so when we think about the product coming through, we think about the development stage. Okay, it's developed. We need to know what it is that we're selling. We need to know what the customer wants, and we need to go through an introduction process where we introduce it to the market. As the customer gets to know who we are, they begin to start, recognizing the brand. They start buying us. We go through our phase of getting out there into the market and having those people pick us up. And then once we get to a certain point, people know about it. It's pretty much out there. It's a pretty well understood product. So that's when we've reached maturity. And then after a while, the sales start to slow down. New products and services come out. And then our product or service goes into a decline. So understanding that means that we need to think about, well, what's happening at each stage of this process. And at the beginning, we move into the introduction phase, or where we're really encountering consumer resistance. People don't know who we are yet. People are unsure, is this a brand that I know? Is this a brand that I trust? Am I sure about this? Am I going to get into it? We might also find that's when we get our production problems, because it's really our first time to start putting this good or service out into the market. We haven't necessarily fine-tuned our delivery services yet. Okay, at this stage, features are important. People want to know, well, what is it? What does it look like? How does it work? What does it do? That's really what they're interested in knowing, the details. At the initial stage, we often find that we have slow growth because, no one really knows about us yet. The word still hasn't got out. But there's little direct competition, so it's not like there's a big movement towards what we're doing. And really, it's a high cost, low profit environment. Okay, that we've got production costs, marketing costs, wholesale distribution. We've got all that going on. And at this stage, there's not a whole lot of sales coming through to bring us back any revenue. So it is a high cost environment. The product or the service is introduced to the market. This stage, it's, we need to be out there very focused, very intensely starting to push the marketing effort to create that awareness. This is a new product, this is how it works. And you see a lot of that when we're launching new products. You see they have market research people standing on street corners, train stations, that sort of thing, trying to get people out there to test and use the product in the marketplace. Particularly for those fast-moving consumer goods. They want them out there. They want people trialing. They want all those sort of things. So it's a very intensive period. Once we've moved out of that initial phase, though, we can actually start to get into our growth phase. And the growth phase is much more rapid phase than the introduction phase because people are now starting to spread it. The word of mouth might be out there. New competitors might also come into the market with not the same product. Obviously, it's our product, but they might have their own version of it as well. Okay, at that stage, we're starting to improve the product. Okay, there's a few brands that we know that put out a product and then 12 months later have their new improved product coming out there. It's the same product. It might be with an S or something on it, but they certainly take it to that next level. Okay, we also start to rationalize some of the product. We know that they might not want certain features or benefits they're just not selling. What it does allow us to do is we can start to shift the prices down slightly because we're now selling much more, higher volumes, and we're finally achieving an economy of scale. Okay, so we've already paid for the machinery. We might be well on paying for the machinery. We can now produce them much cheaper per item, so therefore our prices can be adjusted accordingly. The sales should be increasing by this stage into the growth stage. Competitors are emerging. The products become more profitable. Companies, we might form alliances, joint ventures, etc., and there might even be takeovers at this early stage. Okay, the customers are starting to become accustomed to the product. They're starting to understand what's going on, and they might be starting to purchase their next one of it. Okay, the marketing efforts are still fairly significant at this growth stage. We're still trying to get the message out there. The advertising costs are high. We're still trying to create and maintain that momentum because we want to keep pushing it forward and make sure that we get that market share. And that should push us up into the maturity stage. Once we get to the maturity stage, we'll get a decline in sales growth. It'll start to slow down that little bit. Obviously, that big initial rush of everyone having to have one will die down a little bit. Prime example, Apple Watch goes on sale, it sells out, it sells out, it sells out. After a while, the sales will start to stabilize. They won't just keep having sellouts. At this point, we can start to expand our range out a little bit, bring out new features, new offers, etc. We're starting to have differentiation, but it's starting to be fairly minor at this point. We've had all the major revisions, okay? But at this point, we've also got all the competitors now are well aware that this is a selling product. They've brought out their own version, and they're certainly chasing us as well, okay? The market has reached saturation, okay? People are starting to, they've all purchased it, okay? So as we say, we're not selling as many now. Some other producers at a later stage of the maturity stage of the life cycle start to leave, okay? So other people, we've had the competitors chase us in, but we might find some competitors are heading out. The sales dynamic is beginning to decrease and sales volume reaches a steady state, okay? So we're just selling now. We're out there, we're selling, it's doing its thing. There's loyal customers, there's brand awareness, it's not a bad spot, and we can continue to produce our goods and services at this point. The producers attempt to differentiate their products, so there are those marginal shifts in what people are trying to do, and it's all about branding, product, trademark at that stage of the life cycle. Okay, there are still pricing wars going on, and as you see, PlayStation, versus Xbox versus all those sort of things, they really do chase each other. Okay, and try and price each other out a little bit. At the end, though. We start to move towards decline, and that's when we start to see the sales starting to tip away slowly. The costs are pretty minimal because we don't need to develop new means of production anymore. We don't need to keep advertising so heavily because people know about our product. They've known about it for some time. That's when we start to see a lot of the competitors are exiting, and eventually we move to a point where we withdraw the product from sale and it gets eliminated from our offering. At some point, we'll stop offering that product and move on. Okay. It's usually marked by that continuous decline in sales. Okay, now the thing about decline is don't get into it prematurely. Some people see, the first blip on the radar and they think Chicken Little, the sky is falling. No, we can't. A decline is measured over time. It's not based on one bad month or two bad months, depending on your cycle. It might take some time to note that it really is in decline. At that point, your competition's taken over your market share. Economic and production, it's becoming unfavourable. There can be a lot of things there that start to push you into decline, but know it when you see it, okay? There might be, what might have caused it is there might be a newer product or a better product that's come out, change in consumer tastes. For a while, we had Psy with Gangnam Style. You couldn't move without Gangnam Style being on every radio station, etc. There were everyone buying Gangnam this, Gangnam that. They had little dolls, they had t-shirts, they had everything. One morning, everyone woke up and stopped doing it. It would have taken the unfortunate people holding a lot of those products a little while to realize that it was gone, that they'd had a rapid introduction, a rapid growth, rapidly matured, and then gone in an afternoon. So consumer taste can change, so we need to be aware of that. At this stage, as we're declining out, a lot of people are offloading their inventories, so there's intense price cutting, okay, as people start to move out. You get those clear out liquidation deals once again. And we might think about, we can still maintain some profit by cutting other costs and reducing our marketing, okay, as it starts to head out. Okay, so in the communication, we always need to think about, well, what's the objective? So obviously here is about creating information. It's about getting the message out there. It's about, getting people to try our product. When we get to growth, once again, we're still trying to create that marketplace. Okay, so our messages are very much in getting people to try things, do things, etc. Once we get to this stage, we're about reminding them that we still exist, reminding them to keep on buying or keep purchasing and participating with us. And then as we go through the decline, it's about, clearing out that stock and making sure that they're aware of any deals that we're offering. Okay. The things we look at, as I said, with the decline and with a lot of other things, we need to think about trends. Well, obviously the first trend is that the product life cycle is becoming shorter and shorter. That is because technology is moving a lot quicker, okay, and there's a lot of competitors in the marketplace. Also, the rate of change is just picking right up. Technology is really making a difference. Things used to last for a long time. Now we're moving a lot quicker. When we think about the effects of competition, we're sort of saying, look, if you were a pot, and pan maker back in the day, there was only a limited, number of places people could come to purchase the goods. They'd pretty much have to come to you. These days, I can get online and buy from just about anywhere in the world. I don't need to necessarily go just to the manufacturer nearby. I can go anywhere around the world and buy online if I want to. Okay, so the other thing is everyone's trying to come to the market with new innovations and new spins, particularly on old products. Okay, we're starting to see some revitalisation in some areas. Many products in mature industries are starting to see different product differentiation and market segmentation. Okay, so they're opening up new markets as well. As the globe sort of expands and we can sell to different countries, we might have already oversaturated our current market, but that allows us to move into a new market and start to sell a product over there. So it's not uncommon for companies to start to try and find new niches or market segments to enter, even in their decline phase, that they're going to look for a new market they might not have tapped yet. For example, technology products, okay, in our main sort of market, it might have already done its dash and people have sort of had enough of it, but it might be something brand new to a new market that's just freshly coming along. So companies are becoming very flexible in their ability to reassess a product to put it back out there and continue out that product life cycle. So another thing that we're also looking at in some ways is a longer operating life in some of the products. Okay, so the product life cycle means that if those products have an extended life span, like cars and vehicles, there's a lot of cars and vehicles that are only, they're almost disposable, but a 10-year-old car today can be quite good. They used to be disposable once upon a time, but now they're lasting longer and longer. There are other products, of course, going the opposite way, but generally, we start to think about the bigger picture. Okay, so our companies have to start thinking about taking product operating life into account and adjust their plan accordingly. If they know that you're buying a washing machine and it's going to last 5 years, okay, the people that they promoted washing machines to then, if they know it's going to be 5 years, they need to think about, well, when am I going to advertise the next one? How am I going to push that out there? Okay, they're trying to optimize the product lifecycle revenue and product through warranties and upgrades to existing products. So I can sell you an extended warranty, or I can do a whole range of things that add value to it and extend out the product. Hopefully you come to me for your next one in 5 years when your washing machine breaks, whatever it happens to be, but we can certainly push that out. Okay, the only limitations is this is just a concept. Okay, so we've tried to base it on what we see in living organisms, but things aren't always that predictable. Things can change fairly rapidly. Hopefully it doesn't, but new technology comes out. It can be very disruptive. Okay, What this allows us to do is understand that it is a tool to try and measure and understand what's going on, but it's not written in stone, okay? It is always subject to change. Things can come out and start to change what's going on. Okay, the product life cycle might also be self-fulfilling. Okay, if sales peak and then decline, managers conclude, as I said, don't jump early, but some managers can say things are in decline phase, you know, and all it did that for a minute. If I had watched it, might have done that. But all of a sudden, the managers lose it and they cut the advertising spend and they make sure they push it into decline. So you can actually get that. You know, you need to think about what is the longer term trend. Is it just a short blip or is it something that's just happened quickly? Okay, so think about it. You know, it is a process. It's there as a guide. It's not set in stone. Be aware that, you know, think about the trend, think about what's happening. Make sure it's not just a fad. Okay, with the product life cycle, understand that it has to go through that phase, and it will, but that phase might, if we looked at it very closely, actually more resemble that. But don't confuse the little peaks and troughs for anything else going on. Okay? It's a guideline, not set in stone, there to aid us, to understand sort of what's happening with our product, to give us a little bit of direction, and to try and aid us with the decisions for how we're going to market and position ourselves. And that's pretty much what the product lifecycle is there to do. All right, cheers.